Welcome to this webinar focusing on our pathway to 100% clean energy future and the importance of electrification. This webinar is brought to you by Sustainable Resilient Longmont and the Sierra Club. My name is Mitzi Nicoletti and my co-hosts are Karen Dyke and Sarah Sneed. Question and answers will be presented by Luke Nadu and our technical guru is Haley Herman. This evening, we are going to use the question and answer format Zoom provides rather than the chat box. After each speaker, Luke will present a few of the questions to the speakers. Questions that don't get answered this evening will be answered through email or Facebook. Our first speaker this evening is David Hornbacher. David has worked in the Colorado utility sector for over 30 years, joining Longmont Power and Communications in August of 2019 as our executive director. In his current role, David oversees an innovative team of 65 individuals dedicated to connecting our community to affordable, reliable, and environmentally reasonable electric services. We are focused on empowering our community transition to a sustainable, carbon-free energy future powered by 100% renewable electric energy resources by 2030. Previously, David was the director of the City of Aspen Utilities and Environmental Initiatives. In 2015, David led his team at Aspen Utilities to become the third municipal electric utility in the nation with a 100% renewable electric energy portfolio. Please help me welcome David Hornbacher.
Hi, thank you. Are we ready for me to share my screen, Mitzi? Okay. There, can you see my screen, the presentation? Okay, so let's go ahead and get started here. So good evening. I am David Hornbacher. I'm the Executive Director for Longmont Power and Communications, and thank you very much for the invite to share this evening with you tonight. Today we're going to talk about climate action, electricity, and we in our community. So let's just get started. Yes, let's just get started. Oh, sorry, there we go. So the agenda tonight is that we're going to talk about our community pie. And then naturally, if you're going to have pie, we have to talk about consumption. And if you have quite a bit of consumption, we have to get in shape. So we'll talk about sort of 3 steps there. Then innovative tools and choices, and then we'll sort of do a wrap up. So first, it looks like I'm showing this upper screen here. Am I blocked here a little bit, seeing my whole screen at the top?
I think we can see the whole screen.
Okay, good. I just want to make sure. So this is just a snapshot of our 2019 emissions by sector. And what you can see here on really the right half of that pie is that electricity, residential and commercial, takes up over 50% of our carbon footprint here in Longmont. And then you can also see over on the left-hand side that we've got natural gas that is about 24%, and transportation, that's another 16%. And so that's really our pie as we know it in 2019. And that's really what we're working on when we talk about 100% renewable energy by 2030. So if we're looking for 100% renewable energy by 2030, sort of what does that, let's dive into that a little bit more. So if we look at what the pie looks like once we achieve 100% renewable energy in 2030, you can see that the pie is much different. If we've eliminated all the electric over here, we really have natural gas and transportation. So as we continue to work on to that in the future, we've talked about electrification. Electrification is really focusing on reducing those things. But what it does create is the need for an even larger electric portfolio, because not only are we serving our current electric needs, but we also have to be cognizant of being able to serve some of the natural gas and the transportation sector needs. So as we work towards our 2030 goal, we're ever cognizant that our methods and means can expand further to continue to work on our carbon footprint here in Longmont, Colorado. So what are our sources of energy? So this is direct from the Platte River Power Authority website. And for those of you that don't know it, Longmont, Fort Collins, Estes Park, and Loveman formed Platte River Power Authority many decades ago, and they are our wholesale energy provider. And we're projected in 2021 with the completion of some additional projects to be pushing right around 50% renewable energy. So since even that 2019 inventory, we're making great strides to reduce electricity part of the pie. And with that, you can see I already have 1X. There's been decisions to also shut down the Craig coal units here within the next decade, actually in, I believe, 26, 27. And then also by 2030, Rawhide will be closed. And so already not reflected in this 2021 pie is really the other resources that will need to be determined, built, and brought online to also close those existing coal facilities. You've probably seen this before, but if you haven't, it's one of the cornerstones of things we need to talk about. This is our residential load profile. So this is sort of you and me and what we do normally. And as you can see in the earliest part of the morning, well, we're asleep. And as we get up in the morning, we get just this little peak around 7, 8 o'clock. And then as the day progresses, when we start to get into the evening, you can see at this point, we're at home, we're active, we're doing dishes, doing laundry, we may be heating the house up, all those different things. And this is sort of an important thing to realize, because when you're trying to figure out what energy to bring online, you have to realize that also you've got to be able to meet almost twice the needs when you hit your peak versus maybe your baseline there. And so that's resources that you have to go about. Now, some of you may have heard this curve as described as the duck curve. But I don't think that duck, I'm not sure what he's telling us, but I don't think he's really descriptive. So really, when you're looking at the duck curve, this is more what you're talking about. It's how our energy is low. It swings up as we got there the midday. It starts to drop back down. And then as with the head of the duck, it peaks there in that evening period, and then it drops off just to repeat the cycle. So that cycle happens every day, but it actually happens more often than that. If you look at the weekly average of our consumption over a whole year, you can also see that it's cyclical on an annual basis. So not only on a daily basis do we need to be able to pick up about twice the load, but also on an annual basis, when we look at what happens during the summer to the winter, you can see that we are a summer peaking community. And this is actually just 5 years worth of data. You can see that it all sort of follows the general curve. And also, if you look at this particular graph, again, when we look at the average minimum of our demand and the average maximum of our demand, again, you've got about that 2x factor. And so that is one of the challenges, is that when you're designing a system that's exclusively renewable energy, not only do you have to be able to pick up the highs and you have that type of reliability, but you're trying to do that in a sustainable fashion, and also in a fashion that doesn't over-resource, because we also know with renewable energy, it has its own sort of personality. We know solar is different than hydroelectric, which is different than wind, and they each have different characteristics. And the key is to get that right combination so that we can provide reliable and affordable energy to meet these peaks and have that consistency throughout the year. So we talked about looking at our pie and what our consumption looks like. So what things can we do? So my vision is that we really have 3 stages to the future. We saw this average weekly demand from min to max. And the first stage I really see as peak shaving. Engaging in the activities that we as consumers, we with our devices, and we with our habits, we can start to reduce that peak, take it from that 2x and start to move it down. And that makes it a target that's more achievable than its current state. And then over time, I see that we start to shape more. So we start to shave that peak and we start to move our energy uses to either the surrounding months, or if you think back of the original duck curve, to the the surrounding periods of time throughout the day. And then really what I think, when I think about the third stage, is that we synchronize. And so when we look at what our load is and how that's been reshaped, we really have to synchronize that with our generation. How we generate energy, when we generate energy, so that we're really more in harmony with really the resources that we have, some of which are nature and some of which are our tools. And this is not the entirety of the different things that we have in your generation. We have, let's call it traditional generation, where we're thinking of the power that we get from Platte River that may come from large solar fields or wind fields or hydroelectric or other renewable energy resources. But we're also going to have a lot of grown at home methods of either creating energy or managing energy or storing energy and bringing it online at a time that we need it. But this is really, we have to work effectively to really become more in tune with nature and our types of resources. So when we start to look at this road that's sort of here and there and serpentine and so forth, we're really talking about a different future. And that's something that it's not just the utilities doing, but all of us as individuals, as a group, as a community. And that's going to take innovative tools and choices. So what are some of those different things? This is some graphic that I use quite frequently when we talk to city council, especially in particular when we're talking about different areas of these systems. And so in this, some of the keys are our policies and rates, technology and innovation, renewable energy, distributed energy resources, beneficial electrification, our built environment, and advanced metering technology and intelligent grid. So those are really a set of system resources that we will skillfully craft and integrate to reach our goal of 100% renewable energy. So distributed energy resources, just real briefly, you're looking at distributed generation, energy storage, energy efficiency, demand response, and electric vehicles. And you each might have a slightly different definition of what this is. And that's in part because this is really a more recent development. And we're just really starting to more consistently coin DERs. And so you start to see little variations of the differences in the definition, but fundamentally, they sort of all embrace these similar pieces of technology or energy generation or energy use. And so one of the things that's being worked on at Platte River Power Authority with the 4 cities is a distributed energy resource strategy document. And that should be done in July of this year. And it is a strategy document. And so the exciting thing about that is that we as communities and we as the owners of Platte River and Platte River can use that as a stepping stone into our future to really try to evaluate and grade and implement different types of DER strategies as a whole across all 4 cities and uniquely within our individual cities. There are also 2 more community input sessions coming up. The next one is in April. And so I would encourage that if you have interest to participate in that. Your opinion matters, and it's also a great chance to get additional education on what the DERs are. And my computer is not moving. Give me a second here. Apologize for this. Technology. Didn't we talk about innovations and technology? And that's what we seem to do. Give me one moment. There we go. So some of the enabling technologies include the smart metering, the advanced metering infrastructure. That is basically, we are currently on tracking to move that through in the next several years with different pilot phases and full advancement. Certainly on the electric system, there's distribution sensing and controls, there's demand and distributed energy resource management, customer tools, and certainly smart city. So those are some of the enabling technologies that will be coming forward. We're also currently working on a phase 2 building benchmarking. And so what that really is it's a rating of buildings similar to similar buildings. It tracks energy use over time. Its purpose is to reduce energy and consumption, and it includes data. And this is to give you an idea of the building. A building which is benchmarked has a building score. So if it's a classic, commercial building, it will be compared against other commercial buildings. You get a score, sort of like fuel efficiency. And that information alone has proven to be helpful to create additional conservation and efficiency measures, which starts to reduce the amount of energy we use and when we use it. So back to the tools of our three steps to 100% renewable energy. And it also uses the portfolio manager tool, and that really takes input, data, utility data, building type, gross square footage, etc., and it gives you that output. And so we're in a phase 2 of that. And so right now we are opening up this voluntary program to all buildings in Longmont that are 20,000 square foot or greater. So we're actually out there meeting and talking to them and seeing if we can work and guide them and really provide some essentially hands-on consulting assistance to move through this process to get a score for their building. And so with that, there's also a beneficial building electrification. And, that's talking about reducing, again, the carbon and greenhouse gases from buildings while keeping our affordable housing stock. So it's really part of electrification strategies. And we look for the environmental benefits, economically beneficial, and equitably deployed within this community. And so all these things that I'm going over are really different things that are right now happening or are in our near-term environment. We're also looking at grid interactive efficient buildings. And so when we talked about the duck curve and what can you really do, well, part of it is efficiency, part of it is being connected and being able to know how and when you're using energy, being smart about that and flexible with that. And so we currently have a small project with Habitat for Humanity with 10 all electric homes. And some of those different systems in there include their mini splits or their heating, cooling, includes obviously the communication technology. On several of the homes, they're also installing Platios, which are walkable solar surfaces. And they also all have electric hot water heaters. And so this is where we're out there with a pilot project, really working on some of these technologies and gaining the data and really gaining the experience so we can create better programs that we can deploy more broadly and offer in the community. Also, you aware that there is the Colorado Electric Vehicle Plan for 2020. So what does that really mean? Well, today it's this, this trajectory that by year 2030, they're looking to add in the state of Colorado nearly 1 million vehicles. Now think about that. These are 1 million vehicles that are no longer, they're pulling up to really the gas station at your house, to that plug in at the wall, or, it may be at work, or in Longmont, it might be at one of these 5 stations. Back to some of the earliest part of the pie, we are now starting to move things from that transportation sector into the electric sector, which means we need to grow the resources, the renewable energy resources available in the electric sector. And also, real time is the Electrification Committee. And so we just actually met with council on that Tuesday of this week, and council assigned 2 liaisons to work with this committee. And it's really a multi-year commitment, and it's going to review the policies and apply equity lens. It's going to explore options, right? Best practices, building codes, technologies, rates, incentives. It's going to then establish criteria for buildings, for plan strategies. and provide community perspective and serve as plan ambassadors. So this here is back to, again, the electrification. So we're working on that part of the pie that was to the left of your screen, which was then really the natural gas part of it. And as soon as we build more of that, we have to be really smart about how we do it so we don't make that duck curve worse or make it harder to achieve our overall goals. And so what is the formula? So we have all these things that are in play right now. Some of them in a pilot phase, some of them like the benchmarking of buildings. That's several hundred of our largest buildings that are going to be involved in that. But there is no set formula out there. But here's what I can tell you about it. It's likely to be a very complex formula. That's why it takes some time to do it. It takes a lot of great minds and community involvement input like we have tonight. I can also tell you that it's probably going to evolve. So it's a complex formula that evolves. How we believe we'll need to solve it today. The 3 steps that I talk about changes to what our load profile looks like. When we have this conversation in a couple of years, I expect it's going to change a bit. Probably we'll still be on track with meeting our goals, but some of the tools might have changed. Some have come to the forefront that were maybe just shadows in our background. And another really important point in achieving our future, it's not just utilities, it's you and I. It's how we think, it's what we do, it's how we're involved, and it's that which will make the difference. I can only talk about being the director over the electric utility and how we'll work on things to control load, to offer alternatives to spread the load out. But if no one in this community takes advantage of that, we're really at a disadvantage of trying to move this forward. And so really, we have to get in that mindset that really we all need to participate. And it's all of us working together, really, that will build the utility of the future, build the utility of tomorrow today. And when you get to it, you look at Longmont Power and Communications. I would say by traditional standards, we have been extremely effective, highly reliable, 4 nines of reliability. We're among the lowest costs in the state, and Platte River Power Authority is the lowest cost wholesale. So we have reliability, we have low cost energy, and we have this environmental sustainability element now that we're pushing into. But what our formula that we used in the past to be successful is not what we're using in the future. And that's how we must transition, and that it's something that we are doing today. And so I really want you to imagine that together, what we can achieve for tomorrow. And at Longmont Power and Communications, we are really Power for Life. We have been providing power to this community for its lifeblood for over 100 years. We're part of the economic engine here. We're part of the comfort and joy we have in our community at home or the businesses that we frequent. And really, we're part of the power that literally keeps our homes warm, keeps us comfortable, that provides energy to our hospitals and other human resources. And really, we are part of the community. We're a municipal electric utility. And with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen, but isn't that a great picture? I just love that picture. I just sort of want to pause, and I want to be in that canoe too. So I'll stop sharing.
Do you know where that picture was taken?
So that I believe was taken on McIntosh Lake, looking north towards, west towards Long and Meeker's Peak.
Well, that's a beautiful photo. Thank you, David, for your presentation. I think Luke may have 1 or 2 questions for you from the audience.
Yeah.
Thank you, Luke.
Yeah, thanks, Dave. So let's start with this one. And these are from the audience. This one was actually sent in earlier. What would be the value and benefit of requiring solar panels or some form of sustainable energy utilization for all new and remodel building projects in Longmont?
There is certainly a value of having additional local generation on solar. And if you think back to maybe a couple of the first two curves that I showed, the duck curve in particular, you know, when we're in the middle of summer and our habits are still during daylight, you know, solar is definitely can be helpful in providing energy when we need it. As we buy more and more electric vehicles, if they're plugged in and charging. But I think where our future is not just solar panels, it's really solar plus storage. And that storage could be batteries. That storage could be your hot water heater. You know, in the middle of the day, that thing is heating up and it's sort of gliding into the evening, and maybe it needs to be topped off a little. But our conversations will go from a really monocular focus to a much broader. And solar is a solution, but it's one of many solutions, whether it's on a home or whether we do it more from a community standpoint. And also, just as a side note, Platte River is also under a contract to move forward with a 150 megawatt field of solar to the north. And just to give you a comparison, if that thing was producing full sunlight hard at that moment in time, in the summer, Longmont peaks at 180 megawatts. So at least for a moment of time, that solar field could serve Longmont load. But again, you know, then you have the rest of the day and so forth. But it's a huge advancement.
Okay. Yeah, and to follow up on that a little bit, I think they're also kind of, some communities are kind of requiring new builds to, you know, to basically be, you know, to have sustainable energy as part of their builds or their remodels. Is that something that Longmont would consider for all new builds or remodels? Is that something that would be in the mix?
Goodness sakes. So let me first give my caveat. I cannot speak for city council because that's really a city council question. But I can tell you our city council has been very progressive, and that, you know, they also had the climate action task force, and that they're working hard on all these different elements. And certainly building codes is one of them. So it might be something they would consider. I can't tell you how they would pursue that, but I can tell you one thing that will be really important is to, at a minimum with these new homes coming online, a lot of the pre-wiring.
Mhm.
So if somehow you don't get that electric water heater in up front, which would be ideal, at such time that it does go in, you aren't having to tear up your house to run it, you know, basically to run a hard extension cord to the right area. Same thing out to your garage for EVs. You know, a lot of it is in that pre-thought and getting things ready and staged for our future.
That's interesting. I did a remodel last year, and we put in a gas stove because people want gas stoves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, my electrician said, make sure you put in some 240 volt there because people might switch to electric, and that's what we did.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great example, because otherwise the impediment is not buying the electric water heater. It's the conversation you have with your electrician that he's saying, I need to take it from outside the house at the garage, somehow through the cavity of the house to get it into this center area.
Yeah. So this is kind of a follow-up from another
Mhm.
attendee. Would the city consider incentives like rebates or energy credits to incentivize homeowners to purchase powerful storage batteries, which are quite expensive, because they're going to be part of the, these would be helping, right, store some of our energy in the DERs, right?
Yes. And so my answer would be is that we have to consider that, whether it's at a house or for a neighborhood, or even a larger one out at our electric substations. But right now, one of the keys to success is figuring out how to store energy and how to synchronize our energy use versus our energy production. And so we will be looking at different means of energy storage. And like I said, whether it's battery or whether it's electric water heater, or whether it's policies and practices with electric vehicles, because that is part of our solution. And when you have a business model that shows you how it can work, that really leads to your incentives or your rebates or your other things that starts to drive those things forward.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and the next one is why are Longmont connection fees for home solar higher than the other area energy suppliers?
Connection fees. Okay, I'm going to have to take a guess on that. So we don't have like a singular connection fee where it says, I want solar, and we say, well, it's going to cost you X amount, just pay this fee. However, what they might be referring to is maybe how the cost for building permits might vary from town to town to town. It could be that maybe they're referring to some of the existing incentives that may exist and vary whether you're in Excel Energy or United Power or Poudre Valley to the north of us. But we just don't have like a connection fee. So I'm probably close, but I probably didn't understand the question fully.
Yeah, well, Stuart, we can follow up with more details on that if you want to put some more details in the Q&A. So we have a few more here. How much are we doing okay for time, Mitzi?
Why don't we take one more? And then the ones that don't get answered, we will follow up with you after the seminar.
Sounds very good. Okay, so let's do this one. In order to achieve the 100% clean energy timeline, what are the goals that will be measured against for the rest of 2021? Less than 9 months and every year until the job is done.
So I think that is a very, very good question. I think we're probably more in the process of formulating what some of those different goals are. I mean, there's the obvious one that you see, when Platte River brings on a large project and it comes into production. And that's not this, it's not so much a linear effect as is stair steps, because you've got, where you're currently at, and then you bring a large project on, then you make this large stair step above. But there's a lot of things in the queue at Platte River, as well as the things that I talked about tonight. And so, especially once we get the DURS strategy out, I think it's incumbent upon us to start creating wise and strategic goals, or really more descriptors on what we're trying to achieve and how that can really push things forward, such as, for example, Platte River is aggressively exploring with several other G&Ts the Western Energy Imbalance Market. And again, the idea there is that we can share renewable energy resources across a much greater region. And so what that really helps is, if the wind isn't blowing in one area, it's blowing somewhere else. Same thing, sun and clouds, maybe not so much in another area. And that is an important strategy, but it's really hard to quantify what the results will be, other than we know it's a key.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot. We'll move on. I do want to say I'm going to dismiss these questions. That doesn't mean I'm dismissing them for good. We might be able to revisit some at the end, and they will stay in our queue, so we'll be able to answer them at some point after the presentation if we don't get them answered at the end of the presentation.
And if I could just say thank you to everybody, and oh my gosh, I'm excited to hear Jenny. So go, Jenny.
Thank you, David. All right, Sarah, you're on.
All righty. Yes, thank you so much, David.
And go, Sarah.
Woo, woo, woo.
Yeah. Woo-hoo.
Yeah, it takes a village, and I, for folks that I haven't met, my name is Sarah. I'm an organizer with the Sierra Club here in Colorado. And so it's just an absolute joy to get to partner with SRL and support all of the good work happening here in Longmont. Longmont and PRPA truly are leaders on this front. And so just thank you for all the work that you're doing, David. And now I have the pleasure of introducing Jenny. Jenny Wilford is a clean energy advocate with the Colorado Sierra Club. In her role, she works on everything from clean transportation to building electrification and moving our great state of Colorado to 100% clean energy. Jenny started her career actually at the Wyoming Energy Council, working on low-income energy assistance programs all across Wyoming. She cut her teeth into politics as a legislative associate with Siegel Public Affairs, running campaigns and fighting for working class families to secure good jobs, have access to renewable energy, and expand access to the ballot at the Colorado State Legislature. Jenny strongly believes that democracy works best when there are diverse voices at the table. And as executive director of Emerge Colorado, she ensured that that was the case by training Democratic women candidates to run for office and win, leading the organization to a 90% win rate in 2016, and contributing to the first ever woman majority in the Colorado State House of Representatives. Huge. Jenny ended up running for office herself in 2017 and currently serves as Mayor Pro Tem on North Glen City Council. As the city liaison to Colorado Communities for Climate Action, a great Colorado group that represents municipalities around the state that want to take action on climate. Jenny serves as the vice chair of the political committee for that group. And Jenny holds bachelor's degrees in women's studies, international studies from the University of Wyoming, as well as a master's degree in human rights and political science from the University of Manchester in the United Kingdom. In her spare time, Jenny loves to explore all that Colorado has to offer with her husband, Matt, and their 5-year-old son, Jack, and cattle dog, Ace, both of whom I can attest are extremely cute. So with that, I will kick it over to you, Jenny.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I appreciate the introduction. It always seems like it'll go so much more quickly when you're writing it, and then when somebody else is reading it, it's a little bit different. So thank you so much for that. I'm going to try and share my screen now. Just bear with me. Okay. All right. Are we looking good there, Sarah? Yes. Okay. Nailed it. I'm not a terrible millennial. Okay. All right. Well, first, I just want to offer my sincere gratitude and thanks to the Sustainable Resilient Longmont team for putting together this conversation, to Dave for, being here and being my partner in all of this evening. It's been so incredible to hear about the great work that you and your team have done in Longmont. And I do have to say that, my friend, you are a tough act to follow, but I will surely do what I can here. So I am, as Sarah said, a clean energy advocate with the Colorado Sierra Club. And you all heard Dave talk a little bit about beneficial electrification, which you may also hear called building electrification. I'm going to be diving a little bit more into that and kind of talking about what exactly that means, both in the context of statewide action, as well as some of the action that can happen in your town of Longmont, or I'm sorry, in your city of Longmont. Okay. All right, so I want to start our conversation off by grounding us in our state climate goals, as well as our 2020 greenhouse gas inventory. Some of you may be familiar with the 2019 legislation that the Colorado State Legislature passed, House Bill 1261, the Climate Action Plan to Reduce Pollution. This bill created a framework to tackle climate change by setting science-based goals to reduce carbon pollution, which is the underlying cause of climate change. The bill requires greenhouse gas emission reductions of 26% by 2025, 50% by 2030, and 90% by 2050 compared to 2005 levels. Additionally, the bill directs the Air Quality Control Commission to create cost-effective regulations to help folks meet the goals. So what you see in this slide is a snapshot of Colorado's greenhouse gas emissions inventory from 2020, which tells us that the largest sources of greenhouse gas pollution in our state comes from, and in this order, the transportation sector, the electricity generation sector, oil and gas production, and then number 4 is fuel use in residential, commercial, and industrial buildings. And what's interesting here is that pollution in buildings is also obviously very much connected to electricity generation, as well as the oil and gas sectors, especially when you start thinking about extraction and fugitive emissions. So I'm going to skip on down and we're going to talk about Longmont. Now this pie, as Dave called it, which I probably will adopt and use forever, should seem really familiar because it's the same pie that he just shared with you. And I want to call out a couple of different things here. So number one, this is Longmont's greenhouse gas inventory from 2019 that came out last summer. And it tells us that 77% of emissions in Longmont actually comes from homes and buildings. Now, a good chunk of that of those emissions come from the electricity sector, right? So your coal that's very quickly going away. And again, huge props to PRPA and the Longmont team for making that happen. But the other big chunk, approximately 24%, I'm sorry, my chief of staff is, okay. Do you think you can take this to Dad?
No, you gotta sign in.
Okay, all right. Okay, there you go. Thank you. Okay, can you shut the door? I'm so sorry. This is 2021, COVID life. Shut the door, please. All right, well, y'all are just gonna get some really fantastic game background there. Okay, so the 24% comes from fossil gas. So a lot of folks call that natural gas, but at the Sierra Club, we know that natural gas is actually a fossil fuel, and so that's what we call it here. Understanding, that Longmont's made a commitment to powering the community by 100% clean renewable energy and is already making some really incredible strides forward with the renewable energy sector. The other big piece that Longmont's going to have to tackle is how to unplug from, or how to, I guess unplug is probably the best way to put it, from the gas industry. So, we just went over this, so I'm going to skip through. I just wanted to make sure that you all saw the dinosaur and what I did there. I'm really proud of myself. Fossil for a fossil. So the problem with using gas inside of our homes and buildings is that gas usage pollutes our indoor air quality. It's harmful to our health, and it releases emissions into the atmosphere. As you saw on a previous slide, is a top contributor to climate change in Colorado. Some of the gas appliances that you may have in your home include the furnace, a water heater, sometimes clothes dryers are run by gas, and then of course the gas stove. So gas stoves in particular are dangerous beyond just heating the planet. They can also cause some really serious health problems. Gas stoves emit a host of dangerous pollutants, including particulate matter, formaldehyde, carbon monoxide, as well as nitrogen dioxide. And carbon monoxide poisoning is obviously known as a silent killer, but what most folks don't know is that while they do have a carbon monoxide detector in their home, new research is showing that the standard sensor doesn't always pick up the potentially dangerous carbon monoxide emissions that particularly come from gas stoves. And then diving in a little bit on the nitrogen dioxide, which is not regulated indoors, that's been linked to an increased risk of heart attacks, asthma, as well as respiratory disease. And there was a report that we commissioned last summer in collaboration with Physicians for Social Responsibility, as well as Mothers Out Front, that found that homes with gas stoves have anywhere between 50 and 400% higher concentrations of nitrogen dioxide than homes without a running gas stove. And homes with gas stoves, when you're cooking or using a gas stove, even for just 45 minutes, that can produce enough pollution that if the levels were observed outdoors, they would be considered illegal. All of that is obviously very scary. And for those of you that may have a gas stove in your home, know that there are a couple of things that you can do to kind of help mitigate some of that indoor air pollution. You can always open a window, make sure that you have proper venting, and obviously make sure that, you're not cooking all day. So despite the climate and the health risks, Colorado continues to build tens of thousands of new homes that are connected to gas infrastructure, which locks everybody into decades of unnecessary climate destruction, air pollution, as well as health risks for our communities. All right, so let's talk a little bit about some of the health risks. Give me just a moment. All right, so what's really concerning about using gas in homes is that children, well, let me back up and say, we've also done a number of studies in partnership with UCLA that have basically told us that children are vulnerable to air pollution due to a number of factors, including their developing lungs, as well as their smaller body size. Additionally, children living in a home with a gas stove have a 42% increased risk of developing asthma. As far as low-income populations and communities of color, they're also at risk for being disproportionately impacted because oftentimes low-income folks are living in smaller as well as older homes that may have less efficient gas appliances. All right, so the solution, I think we know what's coming here. I've got a fun little video for you. It is transitioning our communities from being powered by gas and coal to being powered by 100% clean renewable energy. Connecting homes and buildings to the gas system requires investing money into expanding and maintaining gas pipelines. And it's an unnecessary and costly financial investment that will need to be paid back by all ratepayers for decades. Furthermore, when hooking up a new single family home to the gas system, it tacks on between $5,000 to $8,000 in unnecessary building costs. And outdated policies that favor gas and powerful special interests, I might add, and a general lack of public awareness of the dangers of gas have kept Coloradans locked into a gas system for too long. For Colorado and Longmont to achieve our air quality and climate goals, we have to shift off of gas and start electrifying homes, schools, and businesses as soon as possible. High performing and super efficient electric appliances are available right now to replace gas appliances. And today's heat pump HVAC equipment is not only highly efficient, but it also works really well in cold climates and can be used in urban as well as rural areas. One case study that I love to share comes to us from Pitkin County. So this is the Basalt Vista development. So this is a result of a recent collaboration between Habitat for Humanity in the Roaring Fork Valley, Pitkin County, as well as the Roaring Fork School District in Basalt. So obviously it's no secret that that area of Colorado is not only incredibly beautiful, but it's also incredibly expensive. And Basalt was having a really difficult time attracting and retaining teachers as well as other employees of the Down Valley School District. So these three stakeholders came together and the school district donated land directly behind their high school. Habitat for Humanity provided volunteers as well as building power, and the county played a role as well. And together they are building 27 new all-electric, highly energy efficient, affordable housing units specifically for teachers as well as county employees. As of today, they have created 9 homes, or they've built 9 homes, and those 9 homes are fully occupied. They're using absolutely no natural gas, no fossil gas in this community. And we believe that this is the first all-electric net zero community in rural Colorado, in a very cold weather area of our state, which proves that we do have the technology we need right now to make the transition from gas to all electric homes. So when it comes to taking action on buildings, local governments actually have a lot of power. And over 42 municipalities across the United States have already taken action to move towards cleaner, healthier, and gas-free buildings. By strengthening building codes, cities are able to discourage expanding gas hookups in new construction, as well as pave the way for retrofitting existing buildings. For a couple of highlights from across the country, New York City may soon be joining that number of cities that have taken action. Seattle is in the process of building out a compromise that bans gas appliances in commercial and multifamily homes. Washington State is looking at proposing bans for gas furnaces and heating after 2030. California regulators have faced pressure to pass the most aggressive standards in the nation to make to require all newly constructing buildings be electric by 2023. The first in the nation was Berkeley, California, and things have just very rapidly expanded from there. And the other place that I didn't necessarily include on here is Brookline, Massachusetts, who's also adopting some of the same policies that we're seeing across California. What's really neat is that we have an example in our own backyard here in Colorado of a city that's taking local action. And that city's, well, it's actually a city and a county, but it's Denver. So Denver's been working pretty hard for the last year and a half. They have put together a climate plan and are looking to, I believe, in addition to their Ready for 100 commitment, are also looking to require that all of their building stock be 100% all electric by 2040. And they've done quite a great job in terms of building out a stakeholder process to make sure that everybody has a say in building out the policies that are really going to guide how they get from where we are right now to that 2040 deadline. But one of those big pieces is around new buildings. So they built out a plan. It's called the Net Zero Implementation Plan, and net zero to the city and county of Denver means that a new building that's being built and required to be net zero is highly energy efficient, all electric, powered by renewable energy, and provides flexibility for the grid. And as of right now, they've established some tentative dates by which they're going to be requiring all new electric construction as 2023 for new homes and new residential homes, and then 2027 for new commercial as well as multifamily buildings. So they've built in a little bit more flexibility for those more difficult and complicated as well as costly buildings before they have to be all electric. But in the interim, there are a number of steps. For example, Dave mentioned just how important it is to kind of think about pre-wiring buildings, especially as we start thinking about moving towards all electric. And so Denver has certainly integrated that into their plan. And as soon as the next base code is, or as soon as the next green code is rolled over into their base code, they will be requiring a level of pre-wiring both for electric vehicles as well as heat pumps and all electric appliances. So the science is clear. We know that we can't reduce greenhouse gas emissions to the level required by climate science and our 1261 goals if we continue to burn gas in our homes and buildings. And as the electricity sector transitions towards 100% clean energy, we have to turn our attention to using this clean electricity to drive down fracked gas use in our homes and buildings. So I'm going to change our slide here and talk a little bit about what local action looks like and what each of you could do in order to raise this issue in Longmont. So first, local action is really powerful. As you heard, cities absolutely have a lot of power, especially in a state like Colorado where local control is so respected. Cities are absolutely able to adopt building codes, which can really direct all electric new buildings as well as lay the pathway for retrofitting buildings. So you as a resident of Longmont calling up your city council member and telling them that you want a gas-free future and talking about what that could mean for you as well as your community is really is a powerful way to make that connection. Another thing that just with my background in running campaigns and training people to run for office, I would be remiss if I didn't bring up the opportunity for each and every one of you to consider running for office yourself. I think folks that are environmental champions definitely have the ability to shape a city council's agenda. But if that's not for you, there's always space for you to talk to your city council members. At the utility level, continuing to push towards 100% clean renewable energy is really critical. The next time that PRPA has a integrated resource planning process in the hopper, making sure that they know that as residents and ratepayers, you don't want to see any new gas plants. That can be very powerful as well. And then finally, we're expecting to see a number of pieces of legislation introduced this legislative session that will essentially provide venues and pathways for utilities to be even greater partners for communities looking to move towards a gas-free future. And so I imagine that both Sarah as well as Karen and other folks from the SRL team can certainly share those with all of you as those opportunities to testify come up or opportunities to talk to your legislator come up as well. So with that, I want to say thank you all so much for the opportunity to talk a bit more about building electrification and a gas-free future. And I think I'm turning it back over to Sarah, but I may be turning it over to Luke or Mitzi. So we'll see.
Thank you, Jenny. I'll just mention, I think there's a few questions down here. And so Luke is going to bring up, probably we'll do 2 questions, and any that don't answer we'll address later.
That sounds good. Yeah, and I should say my next remodel project, I'll go all electric. Okay, no
All
gas
right.
stove.
I'm going to hold you to that. I'm going to home tour.
Yeah. All right. So first question, are there grants or tax credits available for converting an existing gas home to all electric?
I think that's an excellent question for PRPA. I know that there are some in the Excel territory, and there may be legislation that will specifically, I think, potentially grow those credits and encourage utilities to be a greater partner in terms of rebates in the future. But I unfortunately don't know what's available for PRPA.
Okay. Well, SRL is in the process of compiling some of the different incentives and credits and things. And at some point we'll have that available on our website. Maybe your son will answer this one. You ready? Or do you,
Jack, they've got a question for you.
Denver can do ballot initiatives like the Green Roof Initiative because they are home rule. Are any groups discussing making Boulder County a home rule county?
I unfortunately do not know the answer to that question either. I do know that Boulder has a very robust network.
I do.
What's the answer? Oh, you're gonna do it? Okay, well,
No, Babbitt's gonna do it.
you heard it from
You
the
know
mouth
that,
of
David?
My
You
son
want-
is running the campaign.
Yeah, maybe David knows. Do you know anything about that? You're
You'll have
muted
to-
right now.
Mute is one of my better qualities. No, I haven't heard anything either way about, trying to change the status of Boulder County. I think one of the great things we have is the flexibility we have here in Longmont, the direct access to our council, the ability to provide input, and the fact that we own our electric utility. That gives us so many one-ups on other areas that we can and will be leaders in this area.
What should I do, Mitzi? Keep going or?
Let's do one more question and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, and this is for Jenny still. Burning natural gas is one part of the air pollution equation. Leaking natural gas transmission lines, venting stations, and their close cousins, uncapped abandoned oil wells, are all part of the GHG problem. How are these silent GHG sources being addressed by Colorado policies?
I think that's an excellent question, Kevin. So I know of a couple of things that are happening right now. The COGCC is going through a series of rulemakings and addressing a number of those things. For example, I believe they just wrapped up a deal or an agreement on pneumatic controllers. For example, requiring all of the existing pneumatic controllers which can leak methane to be replaced. As well as requiring a certain level of pneumatic controller to be used in the future. So in addition to the rulemakings at the COGCC, I imagine that there could potentially be other legislation that could be coming up this session as well. So I would stay tuned for that.
Great. Well, thanks for all the questions. Sorry if I didn't get to yours, but again, we will attempt to do that in the next few days.
Thank you. Sarah and Karen, I think both of y'all have some closing remarks. If Sarah, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll be very brief. I'll just say thank you everyone for being here. Thank you, Dave and Jenny, for sharing your wisdom with us this evening. I think just want to reiterate what Dave and Jenny have shared. For folks to get involved, stay engaged in these processes. I mean, we're at this point in the clean energy transition where there's just a lot of unanswered questions about how exactly, like what the exact pathway looks like. And like Dave said earlier, it's really going to take all of us getting engaged and staying involved. So want to encourage folks to reach out to their city council members, reach out to your state legislators, let them know that you want Longmont to do its part to meet the state climate goals, get involved in the PRPA, DER community opportunities that are coming up. And yeah, I know for a long time, I always thought I needed like a specific thing to ask my elected officials, but they want to hear from you. I'm sure as an elected official, Jenny can attest to that. So just sharing why you care about climate change, how your community, how Longmont's impacting is being impacted by climate change, and why you want to see state and local action is really helpful. So that's all I'll say. And if you're not on the Sierra Club email lists, we're always keeping folks up to date on all the stuff happening on a state level. It's confusing. There's a lot going on. So if you want those emails, get signed up.
Great, thank you. Well, I get to do the final remarks here. So I want to add my thanks to David and Jenny. Every time I hear somebody speak, I always take away some other little nugget, and I've been looking at renewable energy for several years now. So this is great. Thank you so much, David. I'm really excited to see the DER report and see where we're at with that. That's been I know you've helped lead that at PRPA, and that's just great. And then I want to thank Mitzi, who chairs our Renewable Energy Committee, for setting this up. She did a lot of the legwork, and the rest of that committee did also. So that's always great to see that. And Luke's on that committee with me as well. He chaired it before, and then I chaired it before he did. So we're kind of a tandem here, but we have several other members, and you're always welcome to join that. So you can go out to the website that's on the screen here and get information about how you might join us in that. And Sarah, thank you for helping us forward. SRL, when I joined SRL in about 2015, I joined because I wanted to start the Ready for 100 team here, and Abby and I partnered up, and we used all of the Sierra Club things, and it was a very successful thing to get Longmont ready to say, yeah, we can do this, and we will do this. So that's been really great. And so we've had a long relationship working with Sierra Club, and their Beyond Coal campaign is very helpful as we look at PRPA and how we can continue to offer partnerships and tell them what we want to have happen, because it's our municipal power. We're very lucky that we have municipal power so that we do have some say. If you're an Excel company customer, you can't have one of their board members come to a meeting like this. So that's very much one of the nice things. And David, I also wanted to be sure and thank you for keeping the lights on during our cold spell, because I have an all electric home, and I like to have my heat on during the winter time when it's snowing. And we feel sorry for those people in Texas that don't know how to winterize down there. So some opportunities that are coming up besides joining the Renewable Energy Committee. We will soon be hosting Earth Day again. We've hosted that since before I joined the group. And we're partnering again with the museum. The museum has, I think, 3 or 4 nights where they're doing like earth, land, air, and water, I believe it is. And then on Saturday will be primarily our usual Earth Day. But look forward to Earth Day week coming up next month. We're also ready to begin planning our National Drive Electric Week. And we are really hopeful that we will be able to do that in person again. Luke did it not in person last year. We had a parade. I called it the quiet parade because we went up and down Main Street and had the other traffic blocked off. So it was a very quiet parade. And but it would be really great if we can have our big party out at the fairgrounds again. So we're going to begin planning that. That's in September, I believe. And so if you're interested in helping us with that, it's a lot of fun to plan it. And the first year we did it 2 years ago, we thought we might have 20 or 30 cars. I think we ended up with like 60 cars, electric vehicles that people were willing to give rides in. We had food trucks and bands, and we had a great time. So look for that. But beyond that, I just, my words of wisdom is to be educated. And I think this is a good start tonight. Know what's going on. Make sure you watch for the PRPA sessions. We'll learn a lot about what they're going to do moving forward. Be involved. Look for how you can help, whether that's speaking up. You can speak up at City Council. You can testify at the different commissions. You can go out to the Colorado Sierra Club website, find volunteer opportunities. There is a group called LACE that testifies, and they do a lot of work. So you can go out and do that. And then write letters to the editors. You can just, write a letter about what you learned tonight and write it to the Longmont Leader, the Times Call, and just say, everybody should be hearing about this. And so that's all good. And it all helps. So if you don't like to speak up at public meetings. And then the last thing I had was to vote for climate champions. We have municipal elections coming up in November. So we will soon be hearing who's going to run. Make sure that the people you vote for will be a champion for the climate. And if you can't find champions for the climate, consider running. And Jenny will help you. Oh, won't you, Jenny? She will. Yeah. So anyway, there are people who will help you. And so, I think it's really important because climate change is just so all encompassing. It's very important that we all pay attention to the climate, and we don't all have to do everything, but we can all do something. And look at the, just a quick plug for the zero waste committee that we have as well, because it's really important that we get rid of not just our transportation section and our electricity generation, but all that plastic that we bring into our homes comes from fossil fuels. And so we need to figure out how we eliminate plastic waste. And some of it's very easy. You can buy a bar of soap instead of the liquid soap things, right? It's really very easy to start thinking about different ways that you can be in the world to walk more softly on the earth. So thank you everyone for coming tonight. A big thank you to all of you for becoming educated. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for the invite. Very much enjoyed it.